Today is Tuesday. It's Yud Gimel Ir, Tafshin Ayin Gimel. It's the Yotzeit of the Rebbe's brother, I believe, Rabbi Yisrael Aryeh. And we are in Sefer, Teres Menachem Sefer HaMamorim, Tafshin Yud Aleph, Tafshin Yud Beis. We are in the Maimer of Yud Beis Tammuz, Tafshin Yud Aleph, Divrei Maschal Nosato, Lireiecho. And we are up to Eis Beis, chapter 2, on page Kuf Yud Aleph. So the Rebbe over here brought the Rebbe gave a synopsis of the previous Rebbe's Maimer on this pasuk, which he sent to his Chassidim in Russia in Tafshin Tzadik Gimel. Previous Rebbe's Maimer was published in Tafshin Yud Aleph. And over there, the previous Rebbe discusses the idea of nisyonos, tests. And previous Rebbe explains that there are two types of Avodas Hashem. Or rather, there is Avodas Hashem in two methods. One is through Birur Hagashmi, purifying physical matter, interacting with the physical world, and purifying and lifting it, refining it and lifting it. And then there is a phenomenon known as Avodas HaNisyonos, serving Hashem through tests. What's the difference between the two? The first one, you work with the phenomenon around you. You work with the Gashmias, you work with the world. And in the latter, in the Avodas Hashem, through Nisyonos, it's not his askus im hadovar. You don't occupy yourself with working with the phenomenon. You don't engage with the phenomena around you, but rather you work with yourself. The avodah is im atzmei, with yourself. How one responds to those particular circumstances. And this is particularly an avodah which is connected, avodah Hashem which is connected in our golos, and particularly at the end of our golos, where the darkness is very, very great. In Ikvus of the Mashiach, the heels of Mashiach. And in this golos particularly, Hashem has given us the koyach. You need a special koyach to deal with this type of avodah, to deal with nisyonos. And particularly in our golos, Hashem has given us the koyach to deal with it. And to deal with it, you need to have what is called toikif atzmi and bitul atzmi. Essential strength and essential bitul. And when one links into that koyach, that toikif atzmi, bitul atzmi, and one responds to the nisoyan appropriately, that causes the nisoyan, the test, to become bottled, to go away, so to speak, or to become annulled. And it is as if that test has never been. That's in a nutshell what Rebbe said in the beginning of the Maimer. Now we're up to Eis Beis. To explain this, the Hinei b'chol aveda, in all service of Hashem, hein b'avedas habirurim v'hein b'avedas hanisyonos, whether we're talking about serving Hashem through the process of refinement, avedas habirurim, or avedas Hashem serving Hashem through nisyonos, through tests. As mentioned before, yesh shleisha inyanim. There are three components in the avodah. Hadavar sheboi tzricha liyas avodah, the thing, the phenomenon within which the avodah, the service takes place, what you're engaging with in your avodas Hashem. That's number one. Number two, ha'ish ha'Yisraeli, the Jewish person, she'olav hutla avodah, upon whom this avodah has been put, the person that has to get the job done. And the third one is v'ha'ofen sheboi na'aseh avodah, and the manner in which the avodah is carried, the service of Hashem is carried out. Im hadavar hamisbarer, whether the service is with hadavar hamisbarer, the thing, the phenomenon which is being refined, purified, or the phenomenon within which the test is clothed. Right? So even in a nisayon, in the Avodas Hashem of a nisayon, although the way you deal with it is not by engaging it, but rather finding within oneself the strength and the ability to respond appropriately to that situation. But nevertheless, there are still the circumstances, there's still the phenomenon within which the Nisayan, the test, is clothed. And in all of these three components, there is a difference between the service of Hashem, serving Hashem, which is called with a name, which is termed Avedas Verudim, serving Hashem through refinement, and the Avedas Hashem, serving Hashem through the phenomenon known as Avedas Nisyonis, serving Hashem through tests. So in other words, the difference is not only in how the person reacts or deals with the situation, whereas in the former, in Avedas Verudim, you engage with that phenomenon, and in Avedas Nisyonis, you engage with yourself, with yourself, how you respond to it. But in the other two aspects, there is also a difference between the two Avedas, and the Rebbe spells it out. In Avedas HaBerurim, in serving Hashem through refinement, the refinement type of service of Hashem, serving Hashem, it's carried out in a manner that one refines the spark, the divine spark, which exists within the thing, hadovar, the phenomenon, which is being refined. You're refining the spark itself that is present within that phenomenon. Masha'enken Avedas HaNisyon is not someone when we talk about serving Hashem through tests. Harei hadovar atzmei shebei nasa nisayin ein b'metzias. The phenomenon itself, with which is presented to the person, which presents the nisayin, that has an itziliki, right? It has a spark, because if it's there, then it must have a nitzutz. But he says ein b'metzias. It's not really in existence. Let's first touch what the Rebbe says, then we'll try to analyze it. Let's go through this. The canal, the Rebbe explains what he means here. As mentioned before, that the test itself is not something that exists in and of its own. The entire reason that it exists is for one purpose: to conceal and to hinder. It's there to cause the person to create a challenge or an obstacle to the person. That's the entire metzias of the Nisayan. That's the entire purpose and existence of this Nisayan, of this test. So on the one hand, we say that it doesn't really exist, right? Umikol Makim, says the Rebbe, since there is here a matter of a test, there is a test, we are compelled to say that within it there is a spark of holiness, a divine spark. Why? Because without a spark of holiness, it is impossible for there to be existence, any sort of existence, even something that exists only in an imaginary manner, even something that only exists in order to conceal and to hinder. So if it exists, regardless of how non-existent it is, right? Whether it's a full-blown metzias, a full-blown existence, or if it's just about exists, so to speak, if it's there, in whatever shape or form, it must have a divine spark within it to cause it to exist, in whatever shape or form it exists. Because otherwise, no existence is possible without divine energy. There is no such thing. So therefore, even in a Nisayan, in a test, in the circumstances that are presented to the person, to conceal and to hinder, and that's its entire purpose, there must be a divine spark within it.
You make it sound as if Hashem has put these tests in front of you.
That's exactly what it sounds like, because that's exactly the point. The most famous Nisayan, of course, test is the Nisayan Akedah, the test of the Akedah that we say in davening every day, right? And it says over there, I think the Rebbe brings it later on, might be wrong, that when Avraham Avinu went to the Har Moriah to bring Yitzchak on the mountain as a offering, as Hashem had instructed him, there were obstacles that were put in his way. All of a sudden, a river appeared, A river appeared. The Sultan came along and created a river. And Avram walked without stopping, and he wasn't hindered by this river, and then came to a certain point and it disappeared. He put a number of obstacles in his way. But the idea is that Hashem puts it in the person's way for the purpose of awakening, for the person to be able to awaken, to tap into those essential resources, the Teikif Atzmi, the Bittul Atzmi, to tap into those resources and to reveal them. That's the purpose of a test. Now, I just want to say one word. Not all phenomenon, the pashtus, not everything that's presented to an individual's life is a test. I'm not sure yet exactly. Let's go through the Maimon and see how the Rebbe explains it. But I'm sure there are certain things in a person's life, take, God forbid, a tragedy, a unglück, right?
Oh, I'm thinking of poverty.
Poverty is a test. Anias is a test, right? Now, when I don't want to get into too much into the philosophical discussion right now because I think it's important to see how the Rebbe articulates it. But just I'll call upon him, certain strands perhaps for us to keep in mind as we go along. In the case of Avraham Avinu, what happened? The hindrance, the blockage, the obstacle disappeared. Because Avraham Avinu was so determined to carry out Hashem's tzivui, Hashem's commandment, so since he did not stop at this challenge, he carried on. That caused the water to go away. So over here we have a situation where indeed through this Teikif Atzmi, this essential determination, not just regular determination, but essential determination, which comes from the essence of the soul, which is revealed specifically when a person is faced with a challenge, that ultimately caused the challenge to go away. There are other situations where the problem doesn't go away, but the person finds the resources within themselves to deal with it. So in a certain sense, it's gone away, not that it's disappeared. God forbid, there was an unglück last week where Shliach passed away young, left a wife and a bunch of kids. So if the family obviously has to find the strength to rehabilitate themselves and find stability and direction. But irrespective of how much of those essential resources they will tap into, it won't bring him back to life. Bringing back to life when Mashiach comes in Mitzvah Hashem. So how exactly you define in what bracket you put the former, what bracket you put the latter.
But even the word a test is loaded with meanings that you don't necessarily want to put into the word Nasir.
What do you mean?
Because a test is as if it's sort of there as a problem for you out there to actually go and deal with. And it had negative connotations, whereas what out there in front of you is your future and how you're going to deal with the situation.
So therefore,
the situation is you, and as we were talking about yesterday, and all you can deal with is how you're going to deal with that thing.
Correct.
So if we use the word test, that has a huge connotation of negativity.
Well, in Nosato Lireiecho, in this pasuk, Nosato Lireiecho Neisli His Noises, he brings the Pirush Targum. But if you remember, he also said that the idea Shenitenes LeBnei Israel. Why are Nisyonis tests given to Bnei Israel? It's there to affect the individual, to lift the individual. Ultimately, it's there to lift the individual. What's the old expression? What doesn't break you makes you stronger, so to speak. Right? Nobody looks for the tests, but ultimately, if a person does go through a situation and comes out of it on one's 2 feet, the person is stronger. Right?
So then the word's not test, it's opportunity. I'm just talking about the actual English word.
The opportunity. Yes. Look, at the end of the day, you're not necessarily talking about something a very happy or positive event, situation. You're talking about a situation a test. Eddie mentioned the test of poverty. There's also the test of wealth. Right? Is it a blessing? It depends how you look at it, or it depends how you deal with it. Right? Exactly. So, but the idea is understood. It's a situation which is designed to cause the person to tap in to essential resources that the person possesses that only come to the fore in special circumstances. And when a person taps into that and activates that and operates on that level, obviously you become a different person.
Good for tzaddikim.
The previous Rebbe said, the previous Rebbe's Maimer over here is, this is a Yud-based Tammuz Maimer, which is the occasion the previous Rebbe was, it's the previous Rebbe's birthday, but it's the occasion the previous Rebbe was released from Soviet prison. So obviously, the theme is in line with what the day represents. The previous Rebbe said that if you would give him all the money in the world, he would not give away, having had the experience of being put into the Soviet prison. He wouldn't give it away for any money in the world. And on the other hand, if you'd give him any money in the world, he would not have gone into prison to begin with. So nobody looks for the tests, but if it's there, and one comes out of it properly, deals with it appropriately, it's something which, the person has changed. You're operating on a different level, different reality. So, again, let's limit upteichen was the Rebbe zogt, and then we can come back to it and discuss it. So therefore, what's the point? On the Sayyid, even though it's not a real existence, doesn't really exist, or doesn't exist, the word Eine b'mitzias, that's the vort, to understand what it means, but it's not Eine b'mitzias. What does it mean, Eine b'mitzias? The NKVD, the GPU or the NKVD that arrested the previous Rebbe, they didn't exist. The patch that he got, the klep that he got, and the yisurim that they inflicted upon him didn't exist. I mean, just at the end of the day, they sentenced the previous Rebbe to death, and that was commuted. They sentenced him to 10 years labor, that was commuted. So in a sense, those in Yonim were bottle, right? Okay, let me figure upteichen was the Rebbe zogt. Let's go through it, because it's an arichas abir, which focuses on this in of the Nisyonis, and then we can come back to it. So b'meila, although it just about exists, nevertheless, any type of existence can only be there if what? If there's a divine spark of divine energy that causes it to exist. Otherwise, it would not exist. As we also is also understood from that which the previous Rebbe brings in his Maimer concerning the idea of this phenomenon known as Nisayin test, that which it says in the pasuk in the Torah concerning the exile of Egypt, that when Moshe Rabbeinu came to tell the Yidden that the Eibishter heard your cries and it's time for you to come out of Golus, to go free, they didn't hear him. They couldn't hear him. Why? Because of shortness of breath and because of the hard labor. What was the idea of this Avedas Perach, this hard work that the Yidden were put through, the slavery the Yidden were put through in Egypt? In that Avedas Perach were clothed a number of divine sparks of divine energy, which became purified, refined, and elevated when the Yidden went out of Egypt. As is known concerning the Maimer Azal, the saying of our sages on the pasuk, "Vayiнаtzlu es Mitzrayim." What does it mean, Vayiнаtzlu? When the Yidden left Egypt, it says, "Vayiнаtzlu es Mitzrayim." They took the wealth of Egypt with them, right? So the Chazal say, "She'asua kimitzuda she'ein badogon." They have made it like a mitzuda. Mitzuda is either a snare or a husk. Snare means like a kind of a trap where you put little grains for the birds to come and eat, right? Or a husk is the outer shell of the grain. So they've made that like a mitzuda that has no grain in it. And like the depths of the water that's very, very deep in the Tahim, in the abyss, as it were, that has no fish in it. Dahainu, what does that mean? The explanation for this Maimer Chazal is they have extracted all the divine sparks, all the holy sparks of Getlichkeit, of godliness, that was in Mitzrayim. However, when it comes to the idea of a test, so what's the difference between the spark, the divine spark, the holy spark, as it were, the spark of godliness that exists within the phenomenon of Avedis Habirurim, as opposed to the phenomenon of Avedis and Nisyonis? Since they both have a divine spark, what's the difference? Because we're saying that there are differences between Avedis Habirurim and Avedis and Nisyonis in each of the three components that exists in each one, right? So what's the difference in the divine energy that exists in the two? In the Birur HaGashmi, when we're talking about a phenomenon with which you work to refine it and to lift it, Avedas HaBirurim, the divine spark is less concealed. In a phenomenon which is related to Avedas HaNisyonos, the divine spark is tremendously concealed. Very concealed. That's why it just about exists. V'zehu gam she'ikrin HaNisyonos u'begolus zeh ha'achrim. Be'ikvus the Mashiach. That is why, when is the main Avedas HaNisyonos? When is this phenomenon of serving Hashem through tests? When is that mainly present? When does that mainly exist? Specifically in our last exile, and not only in our last exile, but the Be'ikvus the Mashiach, the heels of Mashiach, just before Mashiach comes. Why? Because when just before Mashiach comes, we have to. What do we have to purify? What is left to conclude the job? The smallest and the last sparks of divine energy. The little bit that's left over. The little bit that's left over. They are the little divine sparks, which are very, very concealed within the phenomenon that we have to work within the situation that we have to deal with. Which means that the holy spark, the divine spark, which is present within the phenomenon of tests, is clothed and swallowed up, so concealed and so covered up that it doesn't shine at all. It's almost completely not detectable. Therefore, we are not able to refer to it as light at all. To the extent, sometimes it's brought in Chazal, in the Mamorim, that the divine spark is so concealed and so swallowed up within the phenomenon that we have to deal with, that it becomes dark itself. This is an interesting concept, because this is the converse, this is the opposite of what's going to be when Mashiach comes. When Mashiach comes, it says, Laila kayom yoyer. The night will shine like the day. What does that mean? That darkness itself will be transformed into light. The flip side of that is the preparation to Mashiach, where the light becomes almost completely dark, or becomes dark, as he says over here, that the spark of the divine spark that's clothed in this phenomenon we have to deal with, it itself becomes dark. So the Chanitza is the key. It's a godly divine nitzutz, a spark, but nevertheless, it's so concealed and so swallowed up within that which we have to deal with that it becomes darkness. Punk, the opposite of what's going to be when Mashiach comes, that the darkness itself is going to become illuminated. As is concerning, there's an idea concerning Issa V'Heter, that the piece itself becomes nevela. We'll discuss that in Mitzvah tomorrow. But anyway, this is the idea, and this is the hachana, the preparation to the coming of Mashiach.